had a donut fight in the kitchen, and there's cake and batter and everything else all over the floor. There's melted crayons all over. I don't want to come clean up that mess.
Well, me either. I mean, if I'm Bob Stoops, I mean, I'm trying to stay away from the program. I mean, look at the situation. You have a situation where a head coach only got a year and a half to try to change a program.
And it didn't work.
It didn't work at all.
And it actually, he made it way, way, way worse. Well, and now it's like a kitchen where a bunch of kids are in there cooking. There's dough everywhere. They're smashing the, chocolate chips into the grout. There's melted crayons all over the place. FSU's a total mess. So if you want a premier blue chip coach to come in there, and I'm that blue chip coach, I'm like, I don't want to clean that up. Screw that. I don't want to. What am I going to do that for?
Well, I mean, I'm not.
Where's the upside? What are you selling?
I'm not going to necessarily say the mess. I mean, FSU was kind of in the same situation Florida was in a couple years ago.
No,
I mean,
they're totally dysfunctional right now.
You just need to have the right type of coach to come in.
Right, that comes in and cleans up a mess.
Because seriously, because you look at Florida like a couple years ago. I mean, how many times did they go 4-8?
Okay, give me a name.
Right now, the only name possible that they could probably get right now is a Mike Stoops. But if I'm looking at some of the buyouts that some of these coaches
he's going to want it. Why do I want to clean up that problem?
I mean, first off, Mike Stoops.
I've already rebuilt Kentucky. Kentucky's on the right direction.
He was a previous coach at FSU.
Okay, I don't care.
FSU is a better job.
Not right now. It's not.
Prestige-wise, is better than Kentucky.
No.
FSU is going to give you the funding that Kentucky is not going to fund into the program.
They just paid $17 million to get rid of a coach who caused this whole mess.
Because simply Kentucky is a basketball school. Florida State is a football.
Yeah, but it's changing now. Kentucky's actually been a good football school the last couple years.
Yeah, they've been all
now,
right.
You need a bigger cachet name. You got to get somebody bigger than Mike Stoops.
That's probably all they're going to be able to get because, I mean.
And how long are you going to sign him for? This is a little window dressing? He's not going to be there for 20 years to rebuild.
I mean, my guess before they got Willie Taggart was to get Les Miles, but that's just me.
Les Miles isn't out there. You're wrong on this one like every other subject. Let's start the show.
You're tuned into the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Dolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
You're live on a Wednesday. It's not your TV or your computer or your phone that's wrong. We're starting off our new Wednesday schedule instead of Friday. We got a lot of comments about you're giving us great information, but it's 12 hours before the game. So Wednesdays is the new day. We're going to stick with our Sundays. We're glad to have you here in the first round live on a Wednesday. Let's get it kicked off with the greatest sports stories going on this weekend, and we've got to start in one place. It's got to be college football. LSU goes on the road to Alabama. Alabama's laying 6.5 points. I'm loving LSU in this one. I'm 11-1 on my teaser picks this year. Let's go to 12-1. LSU is going to be my pick. I want to take the points. Chris and I are going to break this game down. You're going to want to stay tuned for that one. A lot of other big games going on in college football this weekend. Penn State goes on the road to 8-0 Minnesota. That's right. PJ Fleck is rowing that boat. They're 8-0. They got a home game. I thought this was a perfect place for college game day if you don't have number 1 and number 2 playing each other down in Tuscaloosa. Penn State given 6.5 points. I think this is a really intriguing game. I have a very, very interesting pick on this one. We'll be getting into that one later on in the show. Iowa, number 18 in the country, goes to number 13 Wisconsin. Iowa, they couldn't score points if they were at the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. For some reason, Nate Stanley, Mikhail Sargent, their running back, it's just not happening. The offense is not clicking this year for whatever reason. They are way down on my charts, and they're going in to play the number 1 ranked defense in the country. Number 1 against the pass, number 1 against the run. I think this spells danger for Iowa. I'm loving Wisconsin at home at Camp Randall. Other games we're going to be talking about and watching this weekend. Washington goes on the road to Oregon State. Oregon State's not a pushover. Washington's given 10 points. I'll give you my pick on that one. A close game, one that I'm really interested in because they're two balanced teams. Baylor, number 12 in the country, still undefeated, goes on the road to a TCU team that's got the right trajectory right now. Florida State, coming off the firing of their coach that we called for since the beginning of the season. Willie Taggart is in. Now you got to go to Boston College. You're saying Boston College isn't that good? I think they've got one of the best running backs in the country. At least he's in the top 5. BC's given 2 points. I'm loving BC all day long on that one. Texas Tech goes to West Virginia. I know you're thinking Texas Tech is going to put up tons of points. West Virginia isn't solid. They're kind of bipolar this year. They play way better at home. They're getting 2.5 points. I'm loving West Virginia. Vandy, once again, becomes the sacrificial lamb. They get to go and play Florida in the swamp, getting 26 points. I'm not sure that's going to be enough. Talk about sacrificial lambs. Maryland, they're only favored to lose by 44 points to the number 1 team in the country at Ohio State. That one's going to be a whitewash. My interest level on that one's around 2 out of 10, not even that close. A game that I really do like, and for a lot of good reasons. Number 16, Kansas State, is going on the road to Austin to play Texas. Texas is laying 7 points. I know that they can cover the 7 points with their offense. The problem I have with them, it's like that wicked old stepmother you keep down in the basement. Around the holidays, she starts banging on the door and wanting to come out. That's the defense for Texas. I don't believe in them. I don't like them. I want to keep them down in that basement. I think K-State keeps it close. I'm taking the 7 points. Missouri, talk about bipolar. They haven't established anything this year. They're going on the road to Georgia, who's coming off a big victory at Jacksonville against Florida. I think they might be riding too high. They're also given 16 points. That's a lot, even though they're playing a home game. I'm kind of liking Missouri on that game. Chris and I will break that one down. Iowa State goes on the road to number 9, Oklahoma. Remember, Oklahoma's coming off that beatdown in Manhattan, Kansas, to Kansas State, and I mean beatdown. They can't stop the run. They couldn't stop Tyler Skurlock, Skylar Thompson, the quarterback from K-State. He had 4 touchdowns 2 weeks ago. Last week he went for another 3. My big concern is the same thing that it's always been since I was a fetus with Oklahoma. Where's the defense? The offense is going to put up big points. 9 points is a lot of points to lay in that game. We're going to get into that one more. CFP Bowl rankings came out. The college football playoff has Ohio State number 1, LSU 2, Bama 3. Someone decided to substitute in their cereal this week cocaine for sugar. They've got Penn State ranked 4th. How in God's green earth on this planet can you have Penn State ahead of Clemson? I mean, don't get me wrong. Penn State has a ridiculous schedule that they've gone through. I mean, how do you beat teams like they had to face Idaho, Buffalo, a half-decent Pitt team, Maryland? I mean, I don't even know how Pitt got through. Penn State got past Maryland. Somehow they did. They took on a very tough Purdue team. Michigan State. Those are the toughest teams they've beaten. Iowa, they barely beat Iowa. They had a whiteout game at home with College Game Day in prime time, and they beat a Michigan team that's, I don't know, C+, a B-, and that's their biggest win, and they're ahead of Clemson. I mean, I don't understand how anybody could think Clemson should be in the top 4 right now. They only have the 3rd best offense in the country, one of the best coaches, one of the best running backs, probably the best set of wide receivers in the country, and one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if not in the top 10. Oh, by the way, their defense, it's ranked 4th in the country. There's no way they should be in the top 4 of the college playoff in the first week of it coming out. Anyway, my college football right now, top 5, looks a little bit different. I've got LSU 1, Ohio State, Bama, and Clemson. I've got Georgia number 5 ahead of Penn State, and I'll tell you why. They beat Notre Dame, who was a top 20 team, and they beat Florida, who was a top 10 team. Like I said, who's Penn State beat? We'll see what they do this weekend against Minnesota, but until then, the jury's out, and I've got Clemson in the top 4. NFL news. Patriots lose on the road to the Ravens. I'm going to ask Chris, what does this mean? I don't want to get into an overreaction about it, because if I do, I'm really going to overreact, because the Green Bay Packers go on the road to the LA Chargers. I'm still getting used to staying that years later. They get handed a 26-11 loss. I think that these are just mirages. I don't think they're real realities. Cowboys defensive end Daniel Ross gets busted today in Frisco, Texas on gun and drug charges. What else is new for the Cowboys? It's a carnival of insanity. I don't need any. They're bipolar. I can't count on them. Anybody that's saying they're going to make the Super Bowl, you're out of your mind. Patrick Mahomes for the Kansas City Chiefs is back at practice today. He's going to be questionable. They're on the road at Tennessee. I'm not sure that they're going to need him. I'd let him rest up because you really want him in the playoffs. Big games we're watching in the NFL this week. Carolina goes on the road to Green Bay. Carolina puts Cam on the IR for the rest of the season. He's out. Yep, that's the trade phone. The Chicago Bears have interest for Cam. Why? His best years are in the rearview mirror. That tells me you're already quitting on Mitchell Trubisky. Guess what? I quit on him before the season started. Other games we're going to watch in the NFL. Rams 5-3 go on the road to Pittsburgh, who's 4-4 this season. Last year, this would have been a marquee matchup. This weekend, I'm like, it's not really blowing any wind up my skirt. A game that is going to be blowing wind up my skirt. Vikings go on the road to Dallas. High interest level with that one. How about the Monday Night Football matchup? Seattle 7-2 goes on the road to the 49ers, who are still 8-0. I love everything they're doing. I think that's going to be a lights out, awesome game to watch. College hoops gets kicked off last night at Madison Square Garden in New York. Number 4, Duke edges Kansas 68-66. Both those teams will be in the tournament, probably ranked in the 1 to 4 positions. I like both of their lineups this year. Kentucky, number 2, takes out Michigan State 69-62. The real story here is University of Kentucky guard Tyrese Maxey, 26 points, 5 rebounds. I think Kentucky's for real. And you know what? They're for real every single year with awesome freshmen who end up going to the NBA. John Calipari, a lot of credit should be given to him. We'll look at UFC, wrap up UFC 244. Jorge Masvidal stops Nate Diaz. Actually, the doctor stopped it, which I think he should have. He pretty much knocked his eye socket out of place in the 3rd round. I think the real fight of the night was Corey Anderson, 14-4. First round TKO of Johnny Walker. That guy came into the ring talking all kinds of smack, and within 1 minute, his face looked like hamburger. And having said all that, it's time to say what's up to my partner on my left every single week, faithful part here in the St. Jude Studios, Chris Roberts.
What's good, man?
Well, what's good is you finally got rid of your coach.
Hey, well, it was coming, a long time coming.
I mean, how happy were you when you heard the news that they finally got rid of Willie Taggart? You didn't have to chip in on that $17 million buyout.
Not this year.
Remember that little girl was selling lemonade to raise money to get rid of Willie Taggart?
Yeah,
I mean, how does that make you feel? Because you're a Florida State alum, and I'm not bagging on Florida State because I've been there with Ron Zook and Will Muschamp, and I've gone through the drought years. It always wasn't Spurrier and Urban Meyer. We've had droughts, and this was definitely a drought. I mean, that is an absolute dumpster fire up in Tallahassee right now. I wouldn't want any part of it. So you heard he gets fired, and the reaction is?
Well, I was happy in a sense because that meant the program is actually changing directions, but I actually kind of wanted Willie to succeed at one point. But
when they first hired him?
Well, I mean, even going into this season, I thought I wanted him to succeed in a sense, but after that Boise State game when they gave up all those points and Boise came back and won that game, I'm just like, we're back to where we were last year.
Fumbling and the penalties.
Exactly.
I mean, one of the stories that I'll walk away from the Willie Taggart era is the one that you and I have talked about a million times. Who calls a timeout to freeze his own kicker?
This guy. It's stuff like that kind of just has you scratching your head, as a fan of Florida State, and actually to see your school, to see your alma mater down.
I know.
But nobody's actually coming to the games anymore.
No.
I mean,
and that was last year. You got to admit, that was last year.
Right.
And before the season started, I was telling you they got to get rid of this guy. I mean, this is before game 1, and I was telling you this is not working out. Last year, they were not playing with heart. I felt like he lost the team halfway through the season. The game at Syracuse and home against Clemson were abysmal. There's no effort. They're making penalties all over the place. He's not able to recapture those young guys. I thought he lost the team. And coming into this season, I was telling you, this is not an I told you so, but I was telling you at the beginning of the season, the ship is going down. You might want to get off now.
Well, I mean, I understand last season. I mean, being that, you were recruited by another coach and you have another coach that comes in. So quite naturally, a lot of kids are not going to buy in. But going into that second year, I thought you would have found a way over the summer
to capture them
through practice 2 days or whatnot.
Inspire them.
To grab, I mean, at least the majority of the team and try to right that ship. You brought in a new offensive coordinator to change things around. And, it just seemed like we still stayed in that same rut. So.
And you know what? You and I were looking over the rosters before the season started. And, I mean, they had about 15 quarterbacks, and all of them were about the same. It was like 6'4", 6'5", 198 pounds to 218 pounds, right in there. It's like that James Blackman profile. And I said, I don't see the direction where we're going. I don't see the path to victory here. And for me, I was even questioning. I was like, at best, Willie Taggart is a coordinator. And when they made that hire, I was like, what? You brought in who? It just didn't make sense, but I was willing to give him a chance. But after year one, it's like, that Clemson game, the wheels were already coming off. And I couldn't see him as a coach getting the wheels back on. And what was he going to say to these kids? Like, okay, it's year two. It's going to be different. Okay, but why?
Well, again, I go back and I look at some of the decision making that he made. And granted, I would have thought he would have played the kid from Louisville and put him in the game simply because he's the actual prototypical quarterback that Florida State actually wants to use in their offense. And the fact that he was made eligible and Willie Taggart didn't use him throughout this whole season.
And then he goes with Hornibrook. Hornibrook hasn't worked out for me. He's more stable than James Blackman. First of all, James Blackman is erratic, and I don't think he's got a gun. And I also don't think he has a handle on the offense. Now, that's just me. But then you bring in Alex Hornibrook, who was a fairly proven quarterback in Wisconsin, and it just hasn't worked out either. Like, I'm not seeing the leadership. At least DeAndre Francois had the same athletic ability, if not more, and you could just see in his eyes he wanted it. Now, maybe the system wasn't right, and they weren't helping him out with the coaching staff, but at least I saw a drive and a passion. He'd get ticked if stuff didn't go right. And all I see out of James Blackman is some immaturity, and I don't know what's missing out of Alex Hornibrook, but let's put a bow on that one, and, maybe better days are ahead for you guys. I don't know who's out there that you're going to get. We can get into that a little bit later in the show. I want to start off the conversation with 1 versus 2.
Okay.
LSU goes on the road to Alabama. Somehow, I must be out of my mind. Alabama's given 6.5 points. Tua's supposed to be healthy. He's going to be back at quarterback. Saban said he's been in practice these 2 weeks. I know they've got Judy. I know they've got Ruggs. I know they've got Smith. I know they've got good running backs. But LSU is right there. When I look at LSU, the flaws that I see is their defense. That's what I'm questioning is their defense. They've given up too many points, even to good teams. They gave up over 30 points to Vandy. They gave up 28 to Florida. They gave up 20 to Auburn, who isn't exactly an offensive juggernaut. They gave up 38 to Texas.
Yeah.
38 points to Vandy. LSU right now, for me, the concern is their defense because we know Joe Burrow is going to move the ball. They have a good enough running staff. I think that they've got to establish their run to keep their defense off the field because I think Alabama can go up and down the field on them.
Well, the secret to this game is going to be if LSU can establish that running game. Simply looking at Alabama's the middle of the field. Alabama's weakness this year is their linebackers. Alabama is known for having tough, defensive-minded linebackers who are basically the captains of the defense. Alabama lacks that this year. However, when I look at this game, what I'm looking at the most is Najee Harris for Alabama.
Yep.
If he can get the running game established. If Najee Harris is able to get his running game established this week, I believe Bama can pull it out.
I think so, too. I think this is going to be a really tight game. That's why I'm so surprised that the line right now coming out of Vegas is 6.5, and it really hasn't moved in the past week. You're right about Najee Harris. Right now, they're 64th in the country in rushing, Alabama, at 168 yards a game, which is serviceable. It's right at the middle of the road. When we talk about Alabama's offense, it's all about their 3 wide receivers who could be playing on any pro team right now at all. What I think that the key for me with LSU is they have got to get pressure on Tua, which means you're going to put 7 in the box or maybe 8 in the box. That means you're going to make it a lot harder on Najee to run, and you're going to be getting that pressure on Tua. That's what they've absolutely got to do, and then they've got to establish the run. We already know Joe Burrow can pass the ball, but if you're just mowing it and going up and down the field, your defense is going to get way tired. I think that you use clock management. You take that clock all the way down to 7 to 5 seconds every single time. If I'm Ed Orgeron, I'm telling Joe Burrow right now, I don't want you snapping the ball with anything more than 7 seconds on that clock. You could take it down to 3, 5, 7, 4, 6, any of those numbers, but I want to have ball control. I want to establish the run. I want to keep the ball away from Alabama. And then there's the obvious ones that always come up every single time when we have a big game like this, which are turnovers.
Of course.
And can you play the field in such a way as to keep them pinned back and not have them starting around their 35, 40, or even better? those are unmentionables. I think the real keys, though, are if I'm LSU, your defense has got to rise up, and I just start with the plan of putting 7 or 8 in the box, and I'm going to make you beat me passing the ball maybe, but I've got to establish on offense my run game and control the clock to keep you guys off the field.
That too, but the issue with that, though, if you put 7 in a box, that means you're leaving your corners one-on-one with possibly.
You're right, but I don't know what I'm getting with Tua health-wise on that ankle.
But
and I'm also going to pressure him. I'm bringing blitzes. I'm bringing stunts. I'm going to put 8 on the line. I'll send 3. I'll drop 5 into coverage. I mean, you got to do something different. Putting 8 in the box doesn't mean you send all 8.
Right.
I mean, one of the greatest tricks that Flores had as a defensive coordinator with the Patriots is he'd put 8 on the line and send 2 in. It drops 6 into coverage and totally confuse you. So it's going to take that kind of stuff. Here's the reason I say that is because I have a very, very high standard when I talk about Tua Tagovailoa as the quarterback. I mean, he's proven himself to me 1,000 times. I don't remember what the stat is on him. It's something like 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, or 27 touchdowns.
Right.
I think it's 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy didn't just jump off the bus and put on an Alabama helmet. He knows what he's doing. So you got to get creative on defense. And if you do what you've been doing all year long, giving up 38 to Vandy, 38 to Texas, 28 to Florida, 20 to Auburn, you got to do something different because Alabama's offense is better than Vandy, Florida, on par with Texas, and much better than Auburn. You got to do something different. You got to masquerade your schemes.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that last game. You know, when they played Auburn, Auburn's front four, they gave Joe Burrow fits. I mean, they really did. So Bama has a decent front four that again could give them fits. But offense, going back to the offense though, when I look at loading the box with Alabama this year has been known for their screens, and if your corners are not ready for those screens, you have Henry Ruggs he'll take it down the field.
Well, Najee can catch it out of the backfield.
You have Najee that can catch it out of the backfield.
Right.
So
maybe they got to play a spy.
Hey, you have to do all these things. I mean, granted, you're not going to move Tua as much, but when you're loading up that box like that, look for those quick passes. I mean, Alabama's going to take advantage of that.
Hey, the first thing in the first quarter, I'm going to come out and I'm doing it in the first quarter. I want to see how good that ankle is.
Yes.
And if he beats me once or twice, okay, then it's called adjustment.
Yeah.
Ed Orgeron's been on this bus long enough to know you got to make adjustments before halftime sometimes.
Yeah.
But if it's me, I'm putting 7, 8 in the box. I'm using exotic schemes. Maybe I'm only sending 2. Maybe I'm sending everybody. I got a spy on Tua or a spy on whoever's coming out of the backfield. Right. I think it's going to be a very interesting game. Alabama giving 6.5 at home. Give me your pick.
I think I'm going to take Bama. It's a home game. I think I'm going to take Bama in this game.
Bama and lay the 6.
Yeah.
6.5.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my teaser special of the week. My 5-star millennial teaser. I'm 11-1 on the season. I don't even think I need to tease it, but I'm gonna take LSU plus 12.5 points. LSU plus 12.5. I think it's gonna be closer than this. Yeah. Historically, people don't get blown out in this game.
No.
Alabama. 12.5 points is a lot. I'm getting a fairly good defense, a top 30 defense, not a lights-out defense.
Right.
And I got Joe Burrow, who can put up over 500 yards on average throughout the season on you. So I got a chance to score. Maybe I get a garbage touchdown at the end. I could see LSU winning this game, but I'm taking them plus the 6.5. The next big game on the board, Penn State goes on the road, also given 6.5, except they're playing at Minnesota, who's ranked 17th in the country. They're 8-0. PJ Fleck rolling the boat there. And the amazing thing about it, this is what a lot of people don't know about Minnesota. Their defense. It's ranked 13th in the country. And you could say it's in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's kind of down this year. I'm going to say anytime you're ranked in the top 20 in defense, you're doing something right. This game is going to be interesting. I think Minnesota's got to get their running game going. They go for 205 yards a game. Again, control that clock, control the line of scrimmage, ball control offense, and wear down that Penn State defense. That's my first key to the game.
Well, my first key to the game is going to be how was the weather. Jeez. I mean, you played in Minnesota, so you're looking at possibly some sub-zero, close to sub-zero temperatures, I mean, this time of the year. So it's going to see how can Penn State actually adjust to those.
Penn State, it's cold up in Happy Valley also. They got to practice there.
It's not Minnesota cold.
I don't know if that would be the number one thing I'm factor in the game. I mean, they're playing for the governor's victory bell here.
Yeah.
This isn't for a free packet of hot sauce at Taco Bell. This is the governor's victory cup we're talking about here.
Yeah, so but I'm looking at the weather of other things too. But I'm also gonna also look at Minnesota, being that this is a big time game for a lot of these kids, playing in Minnesota.
Oh yeah, this is the biggest game of their career, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the fact that now you're under the spotlight, how are you going to play? Are you going to come to play, or are you going to freeze up? Is the moment going to be too big for you?
I don't think the moment's going to be too big for Penn State, and I'll tell you why. Because their coach James Franklin, I really trust him. Plus, they've already had big games.
Right.
And their quarterback, Sean Clifford, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's gone for almost 2,000 yards this season. His number one target is wide receiver KJ Hamlin, 17 yards per catch on average, 8 touchdowns this year. I love it. I mean, I think that they're going to be able to move the ball, but for some reason, you're giving 6.5 to me if I'm taking Minnesota. I think the home, they're undefeated, and something's just telling me I want the 6.5 points. I'm liking Minnesota in this game.
Really?
Yep, I like Minnesota plus the 6.5. Look, I told you, when it comes to college football, the deeper and deeper we get into fall, the more and more what we see.
Well, I mean, you see the upsets. You see upsets, but I think in this game right here, I think you have Penn State. You have James Franklin, who has been in these type of games, and I just think that his experience coaching these type of games with these bigger these bigger name schools or whatnot going into these primetime games, I think it's just going to be enough to edge them out against Minnesota this game.
I think this is the biggest game Minnesota's had in the past 15 years.
Yeah.
I think they're undefeated. I think they're playing at home. I think they've got all the momentum. I think the crowd keeps them in the game. And I like P.J. Fleck as a head coach. This isn't the first time he's played in a big game. He's also done it on other levels besides Minnesota. He was a winner before he got there. And you're giving me 6.5 points. So I'm liking Minnesota. We'll see how that one shakes out. The next big game we wanted to talk about, Iowa, for some reason is still ranked in the top 20 at 18, is going on the road to Wisconsin, ranked 13th in the country. They're given 9.5 points, Wisconsin. Here's the thing. They're both 6-2, and Iowa's defense has only given up 10 points a game on average this season. The problem is their offense. Their offense has been terrible. They played Iowa State. They scored 18 points. They played Michigan. They scored 3 points. They played Penn State, 12 points. They played Purdue. They scored 26 points. They played Northwestern, 20 points.
Yeah.
Their offense is ranked 86th in the country.
But, again, the question that I have is how is Wisconsin going to rebound after that whole situation with
Paul
Ohio
Christ.
State?
He'll get him back on track. They have a serviceable offense. Jack Cohen is their quarterback. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with him. 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's serviceable, just like every other quarterback that's come out of Wisconsin in the past 35 years. They're just effective enough to win. But you have a huge offensive line, which means ball control offense. I love that. You've got Jonathan Taylor, who's in the top 5 for Heisman. He was my number 1. He's off of it now. I think they rebound from the Ohio State game. That's all in the rearview mirror. And they're playing a team who can't score. Here's why Iowa's walking right into the death trap right here. Wisconsin has the number 1 defense in the country. They only allow 84 yards rushing and 139 yards passing. How is Nate Staley going to move against them? That's a big question right there.
Well, right now, you look at, so yeah, they're inept on offense, but I think this is.
And you're going against the number 1 defense in the country at home.
But this is going to be a defensive game, regardless of what. I mean, Kirk Ferentz is going to have these guys ready to play, regardless of what. And we know how Wisconsin is. Wisconsin, to me, is, as you would say, bipolar. You just don't know what Wisconsin team you're going to get.
I think you're going to get one that's mad, upset. They were embarrassed. And I think they're going to bounce back in a big way right here. They're playing at home, and you've got the number 1 defense going against an offense that gets lost in a phone booth. I mean, Iowa is just inept. Doesn't even describe it. I mean, they're I thought it would be better with Mikael Sargent, who's a more than serviceable running back,
right?
And Nate Stanley's a senior quarterback. It just hasn't happened. They can't get their offense going. In fact, the only offense that I think that's worse in the Big Ten is Northwestern, and that's because they only put 5 guys on the field and try and score against 11. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be more of a defensive game than anything on both sides of the ball. I think it's gonna come down to a field goal, to be honest with you. And so but I really think this game is going to be close. It's a coin flip for me. Put it that way.
No way. This is an iron cold lock. If you want a money line bet without laying the 9.5, take Wisconsin at home. I don't even know how Iowa's going to be able to score. No way. I mean, I just don't see it happening. One of the games that I had circled, Texas Tech at West Virginia. Nobody knows about West Virginia, and it's not because they're such a bad team. They're a middle-of-the-road team, but I think they're better than average. Especially last week, if you saw them playing at Baylor, they gave Baylor all they could handle. They're at home. They have a pretty good offense. And they're getting 3 points against a Texas Tech team that is really bipolar. I mean, their offense can be lights out sometimes, like we saw against Oklahoma State. But I don't know what I'm getting. I mean, it's like Sybil.
It really is. And, when you look at West Virginia this year, if you look at their record, they're better than what their record really states they are. So when you're looking at this team, I think they'll beat Texas Tech this week. Just to be honest
I think so too. I'm
taking
taking West Virginia plus the 3 points at home. Mountaineers rise up in Morgantown. The other game I wanted to talk about was number 16 Kansas State going on the road to Texas. Texas is laying 7 points against a K-State team that just came off beating Kansas, which Kansas is better than what we thought they would be, but they're still a doormat. But they beat Oklahoma, and they beat them resoundingly. I mean, they were running the ball all day long.
Right. So looking at Kansas State, I think they're gonna pull another one this week. When you look at this Texas team, Texas can't stop a cold. They can't catch a cold. I mean, on defense, you look at their passing defense. You look at their ability to stop the run. They can't do anything on defense. I don't get it. Tom Herman, a defensive-minded coach, and he still haven't got these guys together yet.
So you and I go out in town, and sometimes we have people that watch the show come up and ask us about, college football especially. And I had a guy this week, he said, what do you think of Texas's defense? I said, it reminds me of stripping all my clothes off and jumping into a pool that's filled with double-edged razor blades naked and then taking an acid bath. That's what their defense reminds me of at Texas.
Yeah,
I like Tom Herman.
Yeah.
I like Sam Ehlinger. Their defense, I'd rather snort anthrax mixed with wasabi. It's terrible. And they're going up against a team that just ran, Oklahoma ragged all over the place. And Oklahoma, I would say, is at least a better defense than Texas. I mean, Texas has looked so bad on defense. It's like, I don't even know how else to describe it. It's hard for me to even imagine that Tom Herman has a defense that's this bad, but I see it every single week. And when someone shows you who they are, you got to believe them.
You have to believe
And it's just been all season.
Yeah, it's disappointing because when I look back at Tom Herman when he was at Houston, he had that defense fired up. I mean, he only had one star player, and that was Ed Oliver.
Right.
And so just think, I mean, what he did with that Houston team with just one star player.
Yeah.
And now you're at Texas where you basically get anybody you want.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they're absolutely incapable of stopping anyone.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It really is.
Because think about this. If they had an average defense, they'd be a top 10 team. If they had an average defense, they'd be a top 10 team. If they had an average defense, they don't lose to Oklahoma in Dallas. No. They don't lose that game. And they maybe beat LSU if they have an average defense. That was a shootout game.
Right.
I mean, for crying out loud. Average. They're a top 5 team maybe. Maybe they're the 5th or 6th best team in the country if they have an average defense. That's how bad their defense is now. I can't. College football playoff rankings came out this week. We're going to get into that next. But before we do, we appreciate you joining us here at whatever time of the day it is for you. Tell your friends about the first round and how informatively awesome it is. Give us a subscription. Give us a thumbs up and a like. Hit the bell button and notification for the videos that come out every single week. We're doing 2 shows a week, and we try and put out other special videos like the Kardashian video. We got a lot of talk about that one, especially from some Cleveland fans. When I logged on to clevelandbrowns.com, they didn't necessarily like that video. But, hey, when someone shows you who they are, You got to believe them. College football playoff rankings come out. Ohio State 1, LSU 2, Bama 3, somehow Penn State 4. Tell me why Penn State deserves to be over Clemson.
I don't necessarily like it, simply because Clemson is the defending national champion.
Okay, but that was last year.
I understand.
But they're deserving, right? They deserve to be in the top 4 right now. Clemson?
Yeah, they deserve.
That took too long.
They deserve to be in the top 4.
Who's your top 4 right now, Chris?
Top 4 in order, I say Ohio State number 1, LSU 2, Bama 3, and I put Clemson 4.
Clemson 4. That's what I've got. How the heck do you got Penn State at number 4, and they beat Idaho, Buffalo, Pitt, Maryland, Michigan by 7, Purdue, Iowa, and Michigan State? What's the biggest? What is the marquee victory that they have there? A home game in prime time with College Game Day during a whiteout with 100,000 people against a bipolar Michigan team by 7 points. That's your statement victory of the year. That's why you're in the top 4. Someone needs to talk to me because that's bullcrap. There's a lot of people out here that care about college football, and you got Penn. Now, look, I know everything's going to work itself out. Right. By the end of the year, everything's going to work itself out. But listen, put Penn State in the SEC West, they wouldn't last 10 seconds right now. No way.
But when you have to look at the strength of schedule of Clemson. Clemson's putting up good numbers this year. But you got to think, they almost lost to North Carolina if it wasn't for a botched up.
But every team, Chris, you'll admit, every team has a freak game every year. So that's their freak game. Here's the thing about Clemson. Clemson is number 3 overall in offense. They're putting up over 530 yards in offense, and they're number 3 in the country. Overall offense. Okay? That right there means they're in the playoff.
Right.
Their defense is number 4 overall. Overall defense, number 4. Overall offense in the whole country, number 3. You've got the best wide receiving core in college football. You've got one of the best running backs, definitely a top 10 running back in college football. You've got arguably one of the top 2 or 3 best coach in college football.
Yeah, but again.
And you've got Penn State, who has beat Idaho, Buffalo, Iowa, Michigan State, Purdue, and Maryland.
Okay, so
and a Michigan team that's just,
but then, I mean, you're looking at comparable record-wise. I mean, you have Clemson that beat what?
They're undefeated.
They undefeated. They beat 4-5 Florida State. They beat Carolina. Carolina's maybe won 2 or 3 games this year. They've beat. I mean, if you're going down the list, if you want to go down the list like that is who all Penn State has beat.
Right, but
as far as record-wise, their record
doesn't care about style points.
He's going to have to now.
Well, now they're going to get into the meat of their schedule, and they actually have to play in the ACC championship game, which is going to be against some sacrificial lamb from the Coastal, which I don't even care about. I mean,
exactly.
I don't know who's going to be there. Miami, Virginia, it doesn't matter.
But
their schedule at the end of the year will be better than Penn State's. Like I said, it's all going to work itself out. But right now on a neutral field, you're taking Penn State over Clemson?
I'm Clemson. We're just going by what the body of work of what.
Right, but I'm asking you on a neutral field.
On a neutral field, Clemson win. But right now we're looking.
But that's it.
But right now we're looking at the body of work of those teams to be ranked.
This is when we start getting into this schizophrenic discussion.
It's not schizophrenic. You have to look at the body of work right now. If you look at the body of work,
if you look at the body of work,
look at the body of work right now of Clemson and Penn State. Right now, name me a team that Clemson has beat right now. Right now, to
that's
this day,
not,
wait, no.
Because I'm listening to you. That's not the point.
You have to look at the body of work now.
I just asked you on a neutral field.
On a neutral, I told you.
I
take Clemson. I told you that.
Okay, but then Clemson's the better team.
You get
the 4 best teams into the college
football playoff team right now, looking at the body of work of those teams.
That's not the job of them.
That is their job to look at the body of work.
Your job is to put the best 4 teams into the best 4 teams into the college football playoff. And if you're putting out the list today and you're telling me Clemson would beat them on a neutral site, and so would I, and so would the rest of the country, then Clemson's number 4.
But that's just our opinion. But you have to look at the body of work. Who has Clemson beat right now? Right now, name me a team right now that Clemson has beaten in the top 15. Right now,
I will.
One.
Their body of work is they can only play who's on their schedule. They have a better coach. They have one of the best quarterbacks. They have one of the best running backs. They have the best wide receivers. They're the 3rd best offensive team, and they're the 4th best defensive team.
But again, they're all against NF teams.
Listen, answer me this. Does Clemson deserve to be at number 4?
They deserve to be in number 4 simply
You
because
just made my case.
Because of the championship. But if you're looking at the body of work of
just
them
made
this
my
year,
case.
But if you're looking at the body of work of them this year,
I am. You made my case.
You're not looking at the body of work of them this year.
We're moving on to the NFL now. Despite the fact that Chris is wrong about this, made my case.
No, we're not wrong.
The New England Patriots went on the road to the Baltimore Ravens this week and got handled. Unfortunately, I still have my. I'm sorry. Who's your team? That's what I thought.
Care. That was funny.
One loss. So anyway, at least I'll admit it. But what does this really mean in the scope of things, honestly? Let's get back on a serious note.
Lamar Jackson is a lot better than what people thought he was going to be.
And I will agree with you there. He came out and it was lights out against Miami in the first game of the season. Then he kind of petered off, and he looks like a very good young quarterback in the NFL. That's what he looks like. Yeah. He is not the best quarterback in the NFL. He is not the MVP or in that conversation. He is a very, very good young quarterback in the NFL that still has a lot to learn.
Well, if he keeps putting up games like he's doing right now, he's going to be in the MVP talk towards the end of the season. However,
having said that,
yeah. Every dog has his day, and that just happened to be.
Oh, they were on. I have nothing bad to say about Baltimore. They played lights out. Their defense was on par, and Ingram was running effectively. And like we said, when he got drafted, here's the thing about Lamar Jackson. 32nd pick in the first round out of Louisville. And who picked him?
Baltimore.
I know, but who was the GM?
God.
He used to play for the Browns.
He did.
Uh-huh.
Oh, goodness.
I'm going to let you camp. I'm going to let you camp on that. He was the GM for Baltimore, obviously, at that time, and that was the last pick that he picked as the GM there, and he took him at 32 in the first round. And how many people were like, I'll tell you, I was one of them. I thought that was a reach at that because I don't like dual threat quarterbacks. Yeah. Quarterbacks that win Super Bowls are securely fastened and bolted to the center of the earth. Yeah. Dual threat quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls unless you want to count who? Russell Wilson's kind of a dual threat quarterback. He can take off and run.
Steve Young, possibly.
Okay, you got to go back to Steve Young. Then I'm going to say Joe Montana, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning.
Yeah. These
are all the guys that have won.
Yeah.
Multiples, many, it's pocket quarterbacks. So I have a thing with, and every year we see these athletic guys that are dual threat quarterbacks. RG3, he's so awesome, and then a year later, where the hell is he gone?
Yeah.
They peter out. Same thing with Cam. The best one I would say is Donovan McNabb. But as he got along in years, he wasn't running so much. Randall Cunningham, another one. But again, as he got up in years, the running stopped, and he never won a Super Bowl.
Same with Warren Moon back in the day, too.
But he wasn't a dual threat guy.
He wasn't a dual threat, but he will take off and run on you, though.
So. Again, no Super Bowl. So what do we take away from that? It's just a blip, right?
I'm not going to say it's a blip because the one thing about Lamar Jackson is going into his final year at Louisville. He tried to focus more on being a passing quarterback than that guy who just takes off a run. 1, 2, 3, my guy's not open, I'm going to run down the field. Mm-hmm. And so he has the ability.
Yeah, you can do that in college, you get away with it.
Right. So he has
way more than the pros.
Right. So he has the ability to actually sit back there and be a pocket quarterback. He still needs to develop, accuracy at times because at times he can be sporadic.
Defenses.
Right, he can be sporadic, with his accuracy.
Yeah, he's light years away intelligent-wise from Tom Brady, but athletically, he is a stud.
Yeah,
and I don't think he's that bad of a passer, although he did throw one into the back of his offensive lineman's helmet. If I'm a Baltimore Raven fan, I'm excited about the future with Lamar Jackson. I'm going to call this a blip on the radar. I'm also going to call Green Bay losing to the LA Chargers 26-11 a blip on the radar. Green Bay's way better than that. They get Carolina at home this week. I think they bounce back. Carolina, best running back got thrown around on Monday Night Football with Dallas playing at the Giants this week a lot with Ezekiel Elliott. I got to say Christian McCaffrey's the best running back in football right now, not Zeke Elliott. If I'm starting a team today and I get either of those guys, I'm taking Christian McCaffrey by 1 or 2 points. Yeah. Talk to me about Carolina at Green Bay.
Well,
I think Green Bay bounces back. How do you see it?
Green Bay bounces back against Carolina. Green Bay defensively they're better, but offensively Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the weapons that he needs to succeed. So I mean, I think it's going to be a close game, to be honest with you.
It might be a close game. I'm going to take Green Bay in the game. And the real story with Carolina this week isn't who they're playing or where they're playing. It's the fact that Cam goes on the IR. He's out for the rest of the season. I've said this since the beginning of the season. I think Cam's best years where he was dynamic, mobile, could throw, led his team to the Super Bowl, was an MVP caliber quarterback. I think those years are in the rearview mirror. And the fact that they're talking about a trade between Chicago and him, what if I'm Chicago, so I'm just, writing a cancel check on Mitchell Trubisky, which I think they should. I mean, that was a reach at 2, giving up draft picks to move up to get a guy that only played, 3 games in college football? I mean, I know it was like 16 or something, but the point is he didn't have a lot of experience. And now you're going to bring in Cam? I mean, the tread's off the tire with Cam. You're not getting the dynamic, moving, cannon arm, healthy, MVP Cam. You're just not getting that.
I think Cam has one more year in him.
What kind of a year?
I think
it's not Super Bowl. It's not top 5 quarterback.
I think Cam has one more decent years as far as a quarterback in the NFL. He has one more in him.
And that's it.
And that's it.
If you're going to say he has a decent year left, I'll go with that.
I think he has one more decent
year.
But
I think the tread's off the tire.
Right, it's not going to be an MVP like he had in 2015,
No way. Other big games that are coming out, Raiders at the Chargers. It's not a great game. They're 2 equally matched teams. I like the Raiders. They're 4-4. I actually have them to win 7 games this year. Yeah. So they're on track for that. And the Chargers, I mean, who even cares anymore? The Spanoses have screwed that organization up so bad. I mean, I have nothing to say about the Chargers. I could care less. This is what I don't understand about Las Vegas. The Bills. Mm-hmm. If I said, tell me some things about the Bills this year, just one word pops, you'd say surprising, defense, coming together, better than what we thought, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they're 6-2.
Yeah.
Okay, they're playing against Cleveland, who's 2-6, and they just lost to Denver. Cleveland's favored by 2.5 points. Talk to me. I mean, I'm going out of my mind.
I don't know. Maybe they're starting another quarterback besides Baker Mayfield. I mean, that guy couldn't hit the side of a barn, man.
Yeah, we talked. Baker Mayfield's not even the top QBR on his team. That would be Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham has an 85 QBR. I mean, I don't want to get all into this. There's a video on there. You can check it out where I go tell you everything I think about Cleveland. And believe me, it's a lot. How does a 2-6 team that is so dysfunctional with such a terrible head coach, we're going to start there, with such a terrible head coach and an erratic 53rd ranked QBR in the NFL quarterback with a 2-6 record going up against a team with a 6-2 record is giving 2.5 points. How are the Bills underdogs and they have a 6-2 record?
Maybe they put maybe they put an OBJ back there in the backfield of the shotgun, man.
I can't even understand that game. Vikings at Dallas. Dallas is given 3. I think this is going to be an interesting game. Dallas plays a lot better at home. I don't want to hear that. Well, they looked really good against the New York Giants. Well, so does everybody else.
Right.
I mean, the ugliest woman in the world plays against the Giants, and she looks amazing. So I don't. That didn't do anything for me. Actually, a game that nobody's probably even going to talk about. The Cards at the Bucks. The Bucks are 2-6. They have the interception magnet, Jameis Winston, somehow still playing quarterback there. I don't even know how he's still in the league. They're giving 4 points to the Cardinals. I'm taking the 4 points. Kyler Murray and 4 points against a dysfunctional madhouse like the Bucks. I don't care that they're playing at home. I'll take the 4 points all day.
Well, Jameis has been putting up a little bit of some decent numbers the last couple of games.
Okay, and who leads the league in interceptions?
He may lead the league in interceptions, but I mean, he's put up some decent numbers in the last couple of games offensively. Of course, it boils down to them limiting turnovers. And, if they could limit those turnovers, I think they could take advantage of
if I could walk on the moon, then I'd be an astronaut. So, anyway, Monday Night Football, great matchup. Seattle goes on the road 7-2 to the 49ers, who are 8-0. 49ers are laying 6 points. I think this is going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a good game. I think we see one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, not Jimmy Garoppolo, who is turning in to be very solid because of where he learned how to be solid. But I think that Russell Wilson is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. I think this is going to be a lights-out game. You're giving me 6 points? I'll take the 6 all day long. The only question is Seattle's defense.
I'm looking at Russell Wilson. Right now, statistically, he's throwing more touchdown passes than any quarterback in the NFL right now. So, I mean, I'm looking at Russell Wilson and how he's going to actually pick apart this defense.
Well, the defense, San Francisco's defense is awesome, but this isn't his first rodeo. He's been in the league for a while. He's the highest paid quarterback. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks. And I think this is going to come down to a tight game. And, I'm the believer in San Francisco's got to lose at some point. And even if they don't, I think it's going to be a close game. I think 6 points is too much against Pete Carroll, who's a good coach, and Russell Wilson.
Well, I like the addition of actually them picking up Josh Gordon, too, who's actually looking to play this week, too. That can also take the top off of that defense.
Yep.
And so when you're looking at you have Tyler Lockett, you're looking at Josh Gordon on the outside that can take the top off of the defense. You have I think Carson at running back.
Yeah, he's serviceable.
He's been serviceable this season.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you're looking at now you also have to keep somebody looking at the quarterback because Russ can scramble and steal these plays.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at that, I think that this is a recipe that's actually going to test this San Francisco defense to see if they're truly legitimate or not as far as being a Super Bowl contender.
I think you're absolutely right. Let's switch up to UFC 244 last weekend. Did you see the fights?
No.
No?
No.
Any of them?
No.
Wow. I was mildly interested in Jorge Masvidal against Nate Diaz. It ends up being stopped in the 3rd round. He had won all 3 rounds.
Right.
So he's just a beast, and I don't know what's going on with Nate Diaz. He usually has an iron lockdown chin, and he's a tough guy.
Right.
But, Masvidal pretty much dislocated his eye socket out of his head, and they had to stop the fight.
Ew.
The real fight for me was Corey Anderson, 14-4, gets a first-round TKO over Jimmy Walker, who was 6'6", and Walker came into the ring like lights out, ego, up in your face, smiling at the camera, big eyes, and about a minute and a half into the fight, his face looked like hamburger.
But you notice it every time somebody comes into the ring that talks a lot of smack.
Yeah.
Generally in the first round, they're the ones that's laying on their back, looking up, counting stars.
Sometimes. I mean, Conor won for how many times in a row before he got stopped, and he was one of the biggest antic guys in the world. So sometimes it gets backed up, but this guy, I mean, Corey Anderson, hats off to him. He did, it was like landing on the face, solid shots right on the button, got him with the shin, he punched Walker. Walker starts going over. Then he gets him with a kick as he's falling down. I mean, his whole face just opened up. It was just, I thought that was actually the fight of the night. Darren Till, though, and Kelvin Gastelum, that was another good one. That was a split decision that went to Till, the British fighter. That was a good fight. But just the fact that Corey Anderson was just ready to fight, focused, took him out in the first round. All my props go to him. What else is going on in the world of sports, Chris?
Well, we have the dysfunctional Houston Rockets. We have Mike D'Antoni basically calling his team out, calling them soft because they lost to the Miami Heat, who've actually been balling with Hero.
Isn't it too early in the season to be that nonsense going?
It's too early, but
I mean, nobody's even caring about the NBA. Honestly, it's
early, but it's funny because this team was supposed to be a contender. Your coach is already calling you soft.
I know. It's because it's Mike. When has he ever won?
Exactly.
All right, so that's the end. What else is going on?
And we have Masvidal. I don't know why these MMA fighters think they can get in the ring and fight these boxers. You think you would have learned from Conor and Floyd, but now you have Masvidal that wants to take on Canelo Alvarez. These guys, they got
in a
boxing match.
It doesn't work.
I don't get it. I don't understand it.
It actually doesn't work either way with boxers because remember, my favorite fighter of all time, James Lights Out Tony, went MMA and got rocked in 1 round.
Exactly.
And then you've got Conor, who I liked, except his mouth and his cockiness, and well, he's a good fighter, and I don't like the rest of him. How about that? Yeah. And then he tries to go in the boxing ring, and that doesn't work out. I mean, basically, Mayweather just played with him for 9 rounds or 8 rounds, whatever it was, and decided, it's time to go hit the casinos and put him to sleep. It doesn't work with MMA guys because their mentality is, I can attack in all kinds of different ways. I can take you to the ground. I can kick you. I can, use all elbows and all kinds of tactics that don't work with boxing.
No.
So when boxers go up against MMA guys that box and use mixed martial arts, it never works out. Never.
It doesn't. I mean, this is just going to remind me of looking at Greg Hardy getting in the ring for the first time. It's just not going to work. Come on.
So
folks.
Greg Hardy actually won his last bout, but he's going up against a Russian fighter, I think, coming up in about 2 or 3 weeks. And I think he's going to get rocked. He didn't even look good in his last fight, which he won. But he didn't look impressive.
He didn't. On top of that, it was controversial behind that last one because he took him in Haley while he was in the corner.
Exactly. Does he look like he knows what he's doing? I think he's living off of his strength. That music can mean only one thing. All you listeners out there in YouTube land. That music means something. Our support staff. First off, here at the St. Jude Studio, Chris, stable, knowledgeable, knows what's going on. The man on the board. We have mystery producer tonight, Ray Raymond. One reward for us. El Presidente, check for all of us here at the first round. Thank you for joining us. Hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends about how great the first round is. Hit the like button and the notifications. We will be here Sunday morning live on YouTube talking about everything in the world of sports. Until then, take care.